Now, you kind of talked about some duos in there. I mean, we have Luca and Austin Reeves, kind of the two main players out in LA, and then you have someone like the Celtics. You got Tatum back, and you got Jalen Brown. Uh, you got like a Jokic and a Murray. Uh, when it comes to these duos, and then of course the highly regarded formula, uh, are you able to kind of decipher, I guess, who the strongest duo is going into the playoffs here? Obviously, there's pieces around that, and we could talk about what the formula looks like when you're looking at a starting five, when you're looking at depth. But what's the strongest duo that you're seeing coming in terms of overall efficiency, playing together on the court?
I still like to lean on. I think the win shares is a very good determining factor in terms of deciding who's actually playing well in an individual season. And when I look at the win shares this year, I see the top win share getters are, and mind you, remember this is about people who are available get the most win shares because you have more impact on every single game. And so people who are playing a lot, that's who gets it. Also, people who are very dominant get the win shares as well. So you can play fewer games, but you're doing more in each and every game, and you're getting more. And so when you combine that, you get obviously more win shares. So the top three, and I explain that because the top two are SGA and Jokic, of course, which is like no brainer. They're the top two competing talents for MVP. But the third highest win share is Jalen Duren. And you say like, well, that means your formula is broken. That means that win shares is broken. Jalen Duren's not the third best player. He is very available. I mean, how many games has he played? Jalen Duren's played 67 games, so just as much as any other superstar, but he's also very high on points. He's basically 20 and 10, not to mention very, very efficient with regards to field goal percentage, gets a lot of blocks, not turning the ball over because he's not a ball dominant player. But then the next 4 and 5, the fourth best win share is Kevin Durant. Fifth is Victor Wembanyama. Luka Doncic is 6th. The 7th is Amen Thompson. Plays a lot of games, gets a lot of steals, rebounds, points. He does a little bit of everything. And so he has the ball in his hand. He's very fit. He's not turning the ball over like a lot of young players you would think would. And so when you think about these, and then the 8th best is Jamal Murray. 9th is Towns, and 10th is Kawhi Leonard. But like when you mention those, when we talk about those names there, Jokic is 2nd, Jamal Murray is 8th, Kevin Durant is 4th, Amen Thompson is 7th. From a win share, Jalen Duren is 3rd. Cade Cunningham, before he got hurt, he was like 6th or 5th in win shares, but then of course he's been hurt for a while. So when you think about the best duos in the league with regards to contribution to one's team, you kind of have to look at Jokic and Murray first, Durant and Amen Thompson second, and then maybe a Jalen Duren and Cade Cunningham third.
So what about outside of the playoffs? Because there's also the topic of regular season MVP that must be had. How to when the formula plays out, do you see it playing out? Does it agree with who's that we have at the top 3 right now? Like, is everything that you're seeing in line with everything we're hearing in terms of the MVP finalists?
We have to remember that the MVP voting is exactly what it is. It's voting. It's taking human subjectivity and preference into account to give a subjective title. And that's why the highly regarded formula basically disowns anything with regards to MVP, all NBA, all defense, all stars, Hall of Fame. All of that goes out the window, and we just get to the math, because otherwise it's redundant. It's like, why are these people getting those awards? They're getting awards for the same reason we're counting these stats in the formula. And so when you think about the MVP voting, I mean, talk about a popularity or a political contest. I mean, even more so this year or the year before, I just see a lot of jockeying and lobbying and politicking for, this is why I think I should win. This is why I think this person should win. I mean, at one point last week, I saw SGA and Luka before he got hurt. They're on stage post game and they're talking about not like heavy lobbying, but a little bit of, this is why I think I should get the MVP vote. And it's like, man, just play the game and let your game speak for itself if that kind of thing matters. But then you have people like Chris Broussard, the NBA expert, quote unquote, and he talks about how he wants to pick one guy over another. I think it was Victor Wembanyama over Luka because Victor is cool. You're going to use your vote for something as critical and as historic as the MVP of an NBA season, and you're going to pick one guy because you think he's cooler. This is why those types of votes are horrible for the legacy of the NBA. Now, I will say that over time, I think that as sports has relied on big data sciences, the MVP votes have become more accurate. So, well, who should be the MVP? In my opinion, the person who has the most win shares or the most dominant from that type of disposition should get the award. And so when you look back at like I've talked about in the listing, you talk about Steve Nash, who was the MVP in I think 2005. I think he was the MVP in 2005, 2006. And most people, I think it was, 05, 06. And most people generally give those years, oh, that should have been Kobe's MVP, but he was robbed because of whatever, Colorado Springs or he was not Colorado, but the Colorado case, or he was disowned by Nike. And so he was on punishment per se. But if you look at the win shares, even Kobe Bryant wasn't even the most dominant in that year. It was Kevin Garnett in 05 and Dirk Nowitzki in 06. Steve Nash was like way down at the bottom in terms of production for his team. I don't even know if he was top 10 in win shares. So again, a popularity contest, he was nowhere near what a win share perspective would say this guy is the most productive for his team. But as you get towards closer to like the last 15 years, you start seeing, oh, LeBron James was winning MVPs and he was getting them in the early 2010s. Well, he was also the win share champion. Steph Curry was the MVP the year he had the most win shares. James Harden, in the 4 years that he was the leading in win shares, he had MVP once, and I think he was second place in one or two times. Jokic, 4 times win share leader, and he was 3-time MVP in those years. I think Giannis was the MVP in one of them. So what you have is like an SGA is a win share leader last year. He's the MVP. He's the win share this year. Win share leader this year. He'll probably be the MVP. Again, what we see is there's more accurate understanding of who actually is dominant and why they're dominant. There's a lot of arguments for Victor Wembanyama as the MVP or Luka Doncic as the MVP just because there's an emotional response to them playing really well in March. The MVP is not the player of the month in March. By all means, give him the player of the month award, but let's remember what the MVP is about. Or let's just keep it the popularity, subjective, flawed award it is, and let's focus on what actually gives people a notch of greatness on their belt, which is how much objective productivity they make in one season, which is based on win shares.
So it does definitely sound like there is some not undeserved, but maybe the number one didn't get it because popularity came into play, like you said. Let's talk about some of the unsung heroes of the regular season who didn't necessarily get into the playoffs. Maybe we're not talking about them anymore because they're not relevant. But what did you see during the regular season that really stood out in terms of the highly regarded score, win shares, things like that? Or maybe somebody had a historic season but didn't necessarily make it into the playoffs. What did you see just throughout the year?
Well, with the Clippers being in a 9th seed, and they right now we're gonna get into the play-in soon, and we don't know if they'll make the playoffs by the time this video is filmed or published. But we do know that Kawhi Leonard has had a resurgence in his effectiveness. I mean, this year he averaged 28 points a game, 6.3 rebounds, 3.6 assists. He played 61 games. He'll probably end up playing about 66 by the time the season is done. And that's pretty much the norm for all the NBA players out there. Like no one's playing, none of the high end players are playing more than 70 games. It's an anomaly to see any more than that. I think that's the reason why Kevin Durant is so high on the win shares, is because he played 77 games so far. And I think and he's probably going to, let me pull that up. I think he's going to end up playing. He has 74 games. He'll probably end up playing 78, 79 games.
Wait,
That's
did you mean Kevin
you
Durant?
Kevin Durant.
You said,
yeah.
Okay, you said Kevin Garnett.
Did I say Kevin Garnett? Yeah, Kevin Durant.
So.
Kevin Durant's going to play 79 games. And it's like, wow, no wonder he's getting a whole bunch of win shares compared to other players out there that you would think, oh, they're better than him. But what do we always say with regards to, if your fantasy football team is playing and, you got a receiver, but he only plays, you have 13 regular season fantasy games, right? And he only plays 8. How valuable is that versus a guy who may be a step lower than him or a step less talented than him, but he plays all 13 of week 1 through 13? You say availability is the best ability. So these are the kind of things where it's like, if you're not present, you're not contributing to your team's success. And I think we've gotten away from valuing games played. But the highly regarded formula, win shares in general, does not forget that. If you score 20 points in 80 games, that's better than scoring 22 points in 60 games. Oh, but he averaged more. Well, you scored. You didn't play in those games, so who else was scoring? Maybe you don't have another 20-point a games guy. These are the kind of things that people should remember, but we don't remember that kind of stuff if we're only fed, highlights and justification for people missing games. Now, I've always been a proponent of players play when they want to play, because guess what? If you don't like how much he plays, like Kawhi Leonard, he was the chief of what is it called, load management. If you don't like that he load manages too much, don't pay him. But someone's going to pay him because it's the free market. So Kawhi Leonard, as much as he load manages, as bad as the Clippers were, he was very, very good. And this season went under the radar because they are a 9th seed. And I also think that, the Charlotte Hornets and all the young players that are sharing that load almost equally, whether it's Con Canupel, LaMelo Ball, not Miles Bridges, and there's a few other players on that team. I'm missing it, but Brandon Miller and a few guards off the bench, that were brought in from other teams. That team is going to be very, very good if they stay one cohesive unit next season, and they won't get a lot of credit because a lot of their success came later on in the season. But that's the kind of team where people say next year, where did they come from? And hopefully they get some nationally televised games, because it's a shame that we have to watch the Warriors on NBC and ESPN every single night, and Steph Curry ain't even playing. I don't know who makes that television schedule. The NFL, they flex games, and maybe the NBA should learn to do that too.